I've been getting this comment a ton. Is building a $1 boat even worth it? Let's get into it. All right, this is my hallway of hum. It's going to have a chest freezer here, more battery storage down there, and the electrical cabinet right here. Maybe like a flat surface across the chest freezer and this cabinet that are all the same. But it got me thinking as to whether all of this work is worth it. I am now on the 3rd year of owning this boat, not including nearly a year off. Right on. Now I have a freezer. Well, and another freezer, and a fridge. Now I have a freezer here, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, these are my street creds. This is my $1 boat. I bought it with 2 friends of mine like 3 years ago, and then about a year ago, I bought them out. And in the meantime, we've put a lot of time and money and blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. A lot of you have been watching the videos, so you know how much work I put into this thing, and you're starting to think, maybe I don't need to do that much work. And that's a good point. Maybe you don't. But how do you know? All right, well, before we get too carried away, let's talk about the types of boats you can get. And I like to break them up basically into 4 categories. You've got brand new boats, you've got nearly new boats, you've got 1970s, 80s, but still in pretty good condition and kind of ready for island hopping, but maybe not blue water boats. And then you've got $1 boats. New boats range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 per foot. So if you're looking at the 25-foot boats, often you can get them as little as $5,000 a foot. That's $125,000. Or if you're looking at some of the 50-foot boats, you're often already at $750,000. These boats are not cheap. The major advantage to going with this type of boat is that it's kind of ready to go. I mean, you might still have to buy some equipment on the side, but you can pretty much guarantee that the wiring, the plumbing, the engine, the sails, everything's going to be in good condition, and it's not going to tack on a lot of extra costs like some of these other boats are going to tack on. But you get it all up front. That's a lot of money. So I'm not even talking about multi-hulls, I'm only talking about monohulls here, mainly to compare apples to apples. So production, affordable monohull boats, sloops, ketches, fin keel, full keel, that's about all the variants I'm looking at. The next stage of boat is the almost new boat. And I'm talking about boats that are about 10 years old. Now, they've had kind of the top end of them cut off in terms of price, but you're still looking at something that might need new standing rigging, because if you're looking at the recommendations, it's like every 10 years, 8 or 10 years, you gotta do standing rigging. And depending on how it was sailed, you might even be looking at a few new sails. But generally speaking, most systems are going to be pretty top notch on this. So you're going to take a jump down, and now we're looking at the ballpark of $4,000 per foot at the 25-foot long range, and as little as $10,000 or even less than $10,000 a foot for some of the boats in that 50-foot range. So a lot of these boats are like, you know, for the 50-foot blue water boats, they're like $390,000 to $400,000, and that'll be a boat that's like 2015 to 2023, somewhere in that range. There's, of course, a lot of outliers on that one, but yeah, generally speaking, you're looking at a well-maintained, good quality production boat. The next caliber of boats we're looking now in the 70s and early 80s. Now, this is where the price, I think, is a real sweet spot. Now, probably a lot of you are looking at boats in this caliber. These are quite affordable. You're going to find boats in the $500 per square foot on the 20-foot range, and up to like $2,000 per foot at the 50-foot range. So a lot more affordable than the previous options. These are going to need some repairs. Now, they'll usually be ready for like island hopping or a little coastal cruising, light coastal cruising in season. That'll be pretty much ready for that out the box. So it's a good deal for a lot of sailors. A lot of sailors that aren't going to commit to this world 100% and maybe want to take a lighter dip into this pool, not on the deep end. You're looking at spending somewhere in the ballpark of $10,000 for some of these sub 30-foot boats, $20,000 to $30,000 for the 30-footers, and then all the way up to like 80 to maybe $100,000 on the 50-foot range. But again, these are fiberglass boats. There's going to be some stuff wrong with them, but these are production boats. So I'm not looking at home builds. I'm not looking at steel boats, aluminum boats mostly. I'm mostly just looking at these are good bang for your buck fiberglass boats. But it's a good option because getting into this area, you're looking at a similar amount of money as you might invest. Now, you still need to go, we're definitely doing rigging at that point, standing rigging. You're definitely looking at new sails if you really want to get some better performance out of that boat and want to take it offshore. And you're looking at some investment like probably redoing wiring, probably updating instruments. Like a lot of these boats have some really old instruments on them. So you're probably looking at that, probably looking at all new through hulls, and you might be looking at engine rebuilds. So we're not talking about a small amount of money anymore when it comes to upgrading and updating the boat. It's a pretty significant amount of money. We're talking about $20,000 or more in this caliber if you want to get it blue water ready. And that more can be more. Like it really is up to you how much you want to spend on that kind of thing. Sky's the limit. Check that out. It's crazy to be like in my hallway and there to be something here finally. Yeah, once the epoxy cures, I'll be able to start primering and painting it. Well, now that the epoxy is curing, we're gonna run off and take the dogs for a walk, stretch our legs a little bit, get into some nature, and then we get to talk about what kind of sailor you are, because that's the other thing, whether this whole thing is worth it, is just who's buying it. You ready to go? You're doing great. You're doing great. There are quite a few different uses of a boat for different types of sailors. So you could be a just weekender, and so buying something from the 70s and 80s that's in reasonably good condition might not cost you that much. You might end up doing a few minor upgrades to it, bringing some new electronics onto it, newer batteries, maybe updating the solar system, a little bit of electrical here and there, but you're probably not going to have to buy new sails out the gate or redo all of the standing rigging right away or anything like that, just to get some light use out of it. And for liveaboard, similarly, you might only be updating some of the batteries and the inverter and some of those comfort systems, putting a new heater in it, that type of thing. But you're still looking at the $10,000 worth of upgrades or less. It's the full-time cruising and the blue water, that's where the prices really start to rack up. If you're going to be replacing all the standing rigging, maybe repowering it with a new engine, maybe all new sails, a bunch of other equipment for some of these used boats, those fees can really rack up, and suddenly that newer boat doesn't actually seem that expensive. Outfitting a boat for blue water can really start to rack up those charges. And my argument here is that if you're looking at a $1 boat or you're looking at a 1970s to 1980s blue water capable boat, the amount of refitting and retrofitting you're going to end up doing to that 70s boat, whether you're buying it for $1 or you're buying it for $80,000, it's going to be a similar amount of money. It's not that dissimilar, just because the only thing that's really different between the two is going to be the structural work. So you're going to do structural work on a $1 boat, and you're not if you spent $80,000 on it, but then you spent $80,000 on it. Back in the shop, we're going to coat some stuff in epoxy, and I want to run through a list of prices because there's so much stuff you can spend money on when you're buying a boat. And I think when you're looking at a boat, you want to see how many of these things you can scratch off the list in the purchase price, because that's the only good deal you're going to get when it comes to boats. It's buying the boat. I regularly find people selling boats where they just spent nearly what they're asking for the boat 2 years ago on the boat. So that's where you can swoop in and get that kind of deal. Because after that, you're paying marine prices for pretty much everything. Now, I'm going to just put a list of things on the screen right now that you can spend money on a boat on, like rebuilding, retrofitting, repowering, new masts, new sails, new wiring, new generator, new engine. I mean, all of it can vary a lot, whether you're going to get something DIY or you're going to pay somebody to do it, or you're going to try and restore something that's used. It all varies in price, but all of them have their trade-off, and the trade-off is usually man hours. So you got to think about that before you're getting into it too much. And I think you'll see in the end that some of the biggest items are like masts. Potentially a new engine would cost quite a bit. And, you know, even the standing rigging at 10 grand is kind of crazy. So when I bought my $1 boat, one of the things I was really concerned with was scratching as many of those things off the list. So there's quite a few of those things I had to do to my boat so far and will have to do, but you'll notice that some of the big ticket items are already good. So I already have good masts, good spars, good bowsprit. The standing rigging is serviceable. The engine is serviceable. Like that, those are huge ticket items that really drop the overall price of my $1 boat. You've got yourself a price list, and I could say a lot about that price list. There's a lot missing from it. There's also no labor on it. Some of those prices are for used things, some of them are for new things. It's going to vary quite a lot, but I think keeping an eye on some of those big ticket items especially are going to be super important for you going forward if you want to get in the game of either buying any boat or especially buying a fixer-upper or, God forbid, a $1 boat. For instance, when I agreed to take on perihelion for $1, I was very concerned with what her major expenses would be. But since she had a functioning, relatively, engine, and her aluminum spars and aluminum mast had recently been replaced, well, within 20 years, and the sails at the same time, and the standing rigging at the same time, all of the equipment wasn't that old and serviceable. So those are huge ticket items right at the top of the list. And everything else down lower, like all the instruments being out of date, all the electrical needing to be redone, all the plumbing need to be redone. And mostly it was the decks that were rotten, and that was a huge amount of sweat equity, but not a huge amount of cost. And if you're like me and you didn't have a ton of money, it starts to make a bit of sense. Just because you don't have a big wad of cash to blow on a boat right now doesn't mean you can't save up for one. And is that a better deal than buying a $1 boat and building it yourself? All right, now we're getting into the meat of it, whether it's all worth it. And in order to do that, I'm going to kind of simplify things down, dumb them all down. So we're going to get the extremes of each possible scenario, and then you can take that information and subtract what elements you can control. So for instance, if you already have some savings for a boat, that changes things. If you have cheap rent, that changes things. If you have a way of living somewhere, maybe you can put the boat on a mooring ball instead of at the dock because you can't get dock moorage or anything like that. That changes things. So let's talk a little bit about the three different options, and we'll put it in constraints. It's going to be a $100,000 boat or a $1 boat. And we're going to use 4 years to restore the $1 boat or save up $100,000 or pay off $100,000 worth of debt. Those are my three options. So let's look at it. The first option is saving up. Now, you can save up via putting your money in the stock market and continuing to pay rent and continuing to work your job. But if you're in British Columbia, the average rent is $1,860 a month for a one bedroom. You might be paying more, you might be paying less. I hope to God you're paying less than that. But it's not an insignificant amount of money. Now, in order to save up $100,000 in the stock market, say you can get 11% returns year after year by investing in broad market ETFs or something like that. I don't know, whatever.
11's pretty optimistic, let's put it that way. Your monthly contributions are going to be almost as much as your rent at $1,680 just to get to that sweet spot of $100,000 after 4 years. That's a pretty substantial investment. You are spending $3,500 just on your rent and your dream of one day owning a boat. And not a lot of people, I mean, that means that you are pulling in the ballpark of $40,000 a year, and all of that is going just to rent and the dream. No food, no car, no bills. It's a lot of money. The total money spent on saving up for that $100,000 boat whilst also paying rent at that rate is $170,000 roughly. So that's all dependent on your rent, your job, and optimistic stock market outcomes, and it is still boat price dependent. So, I mean, you might be looking at a more or less dollar boat, and you might be spending more or less on repairing it and getting it ready. But $170,000 in the end, after 4 years. So let's look at a different route. Let's look at debt. Well, personally, I'm not really into debt, but these numbers are actually kind of compelling. And maybe it's just an indication of how terrible our housing market is right now, especially in British Columbia, that this is at all an attractive scenario. But you know what? Whatever. Let's talk about it. So say you get yourself a good line of credit without using a home as equity. So a good rate at that is like 6%. So you're trying to pay it off in the same window of 4 years, making your monthly payments $2,349 a month. That is very high for rent payments or mortgage payments or any kind of monthly payment. But keep in mind, you're now not paying rent because you live on your boat. Now, living on a boat is not easy. I'll give you that. There's not a lot of places that'll accept you mooring your boat at the dock. They're super rare up here in British Columbia because, again, see housing market. But optimistically, say you're only spending $500 on your mortgage fees. It's a very low number, I know, but whatever. It's what I happen to be paying. So in the end, you end up paying off the debt in 4 years, spending a total of $112,000 just on the debt, and then mortgage, you're spending $24,000 on that over the course of 4 years. Okay, now you may not be mooring, maybe you're sailing around, maybe you're actually enjoying your life. It is one of the perks of having a boat ready to go, paid for by the bank that you get to go and enjoy. Oh, one of my drips. I need it wet enough to roll and tip, but dry enough not to drip. Well, sander makes you the painter you're not, I suppose. The advantage, of course, of that option is that you get to start using the boat right away. Let's talk about the price. Since you're not paying rent the whole time and you're paying mortgage at a much cheaper rate, you're actually doing better than the guy who saved up for the boat, which is crazy to me. That shouldn't be that way. The total on that one is $136,728, which, yeah, it's a solid $35,000 less than saving up while paying rent. I guess the rule there is don't pay rent. Landlords are bad, guys. Holy crap. So let's talk about the last option, building out a $1 boat. Say everything on that list that I marked before is there for a 50-foot boat. That means that you're going to spend $93,000 just in materials, which sucks. A huge part of that is like the mast and the engine and stuff, so hopefully I won't have to do any of those things. But mortgage, I'm paying $500 a month, so $24,000 over the course of 4 years, let's say. I'm on a mooring ball a lot of the time, which I own, and I don't have to pay rent on that. Total is $117,000. So yes, it is $20,000 cheaper than buying it from the bank. But that's 4 years of my life that I'm working on the boat for an average of basically $5,000 a year. Not great. Not a great deal. So yeah, it's not a good deal. But it's only not a good deal if so much has to be fixed, which is why I was so critical about perihelion when I first bought her. Now, I ended up getting a boat that had a new mast, decently new sails. The rigging had been changed fairly recently. The engine was in running condition. She had a generator, not entirely functional. All the tankage was good. All the interior was good. I didn't even put that on the list. Building out an interior with this amount of teak, buku bucks. You probably wouldn't do it with this much teak today. All the cushions are all done, basically. I only had to do a little bit of upholstery work. And it actually came with a full set of canvas covers. That's crazy. If things keep going the way they're going, I'm probably going to spend less than $50,000 restoring this boat. Knock on wood. But I will end up spending 4 years of my life doing it, and in those labor hours, what are they worth to you? Well, that is up to you. If you want a bigger breakdown on that, I've included a whole breakdown on my expenses on my Patreon. Shout out my Patreon. It's a great way for me to try and pay for all of this. Because this, like as I mentioned, it's a ton of work, and that labor is pretty much unpaid at this point. I am really blown away by how good of an option buying with debt is. I'm not suggesting it, by the way. Don't get debt. That's crazy. What I am suggesting, though, my breakdown on all of this, where I fall on it, is paying rent basically kills your ability to save up and or buy and or do anything with your life. And I don't want to get too political, but I think it's the main way that they keep us wage slaves is paying rent. And if you're paying for a mortgage because you didn't have that money up front to go buy some crazy house because the houses are so expensive, you're just paying rent to a different landlord, basically. God, that sucks so much. Ugh. This paint dries really fast. I'm going to end up sanding this, I can tell already. So my advice after all of this, how to afford your blue water boat, or any boat really for that matter, is limit your liabilities, get out from under the thumb of a landlord. If I was going to do it all over again, I would definitely have kept my camper van for longer, maybe come out here to the West Coast and get a job with one of the shipyards around here. And you work at a shipyard for even like 2 or 3 months and you will know about good deals and bad deals on boats. And it's nice to have the people who spend their lives fixing boats telling you what's worth fixing and what's not worth fixing. I mean, a lot of this is passion. Don't get me wrong, but if you're looking for the cold hard numbers, the guys at the shipyard know it. When it comes to $1 boats, they can be worth it, but you have to know what you're looking at, and you're not going to if you just come at this without some experience on the water. So I think the first thing you should do is learn from my experience of not doing so, get some experience on the water. Go work in the maritime field, get your SVOP, go get some basic tickets, and start working on the water or start working near the water at a shipyard would be a great place for that, because the shipyard guys, they know what a good deal is and they know how much work fixing a boat is, because that's what they do every single day. I've painted this in the wrong order. I'm gonna have to redo this part. It's a good thing I got these freaking monkey arms that just go on forever. I'll never be able to reach the bottom of this cabinet otherwise. I wanted to put paint on that sweater. That's fine. If you want to fix a $1 boat, it's going to take a ton of time. And that is just probably not a good option for a lot of people. I'm going to say it right now. Is the premise of this video a little silly? Yeah, definitely. You can't really predict exactly how every project's going to go. Blue water boats at $100,000 is a weird number. There's plenty that are, $750,000. There are some that people will claim are blue water and costs $10,000. Whatever. It is what it is. Your mileage will 100% vary, and everything I said has a lot of asterisks next to it. So, argue about it in the comment section. My credit is, well, I went to university, so it ain't that great. So I can tell you that it's most likely the bank would have told me to go screw myself. So it's not like it was really an option anyways for me, but it's a nice mental exercise and we can leave it at that. So is it worth it? I don't know. It's a weird premise to a video. I'm making up a bunch of numbers that have some research on them, but a lot of asterisks. Check it out. Cabinetry. Yay, somewhere to put my freezer and batteries and electrical cabinet. It's gonna be sick. But yeah, I'm probably gonna spend 4 years of my life building out a blue water boat that other people can afford to buy fresh out the gate. And maybe they have banks offering them money. Maybe they have the money. Maybe they're working a job where they can actually save. Maybe their landlord isn't sucking every little dollar that they make out of them. But that wasn't me. And this worked for me. Now, hopefully I'll end up building this boat for less than $50,000 in materials, because a lot of the stuff that's big ticket items are actually good on this boat. And maybe I'll manage that, knock on wood. And if that's the case, then essentially I'll have been paying myself in the ballpark of $15,000 a year to fix this boat instead of buying it with debt. Okay, and I make somewhere in the ballpark of $20,000 a year trying to fund all of this. So, you know, $35,000 a year is, well, it's not a lot of money, but it's some money. It's something. There you go. I don't know, guys. This is the dream. It's just a dream. We're all so beautifully romantic about this thing. And I had the chance to talk with a man that has done this before, twice in fact, Aladino. And he had a great line about it. And I just want to cap it all off with that because I think it's quite romantic and funny and great. Some go to a grocery store and others prefer the harder work of running a farm or homestead for the same goal of food in the pantry. And I feel like that's very beautiful. I don't know if I'm that guy, honestly. I'm trying to enjoy the process and be part of it. And I think my life right now is quite beautiful, and I am enjoying it. But maybe I'm not quite the craftsman that Aladino is, but I certainly appreciate the sentiment. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.